Good morning. Nice to see all the beautiful faces on this beautiful sunny day. One for the fall. Just a little bit of an introduction. My name is Susan Wilkinson, and I am the outgoing president for the Rotary Club of Nashoba. And we have been working with so many of you here to make this happen today. So thank you all for being here. And we can get started. All right, so as of now, we're gonna have the fire department color guard present the colors, and this is led by veteran CAM, Mr. Hawley. Mr. Hawley, go ahead. All right, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trevor.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. And we will have the Veterans Prayer by Sophia Schneider.
This is call and response, so after every few lines, we say, "We remember them." We remember with sorrow those whom death has taken from our midst. Taking those dear ones into our beloved, we recall them with reverence. In the rising sun and in its down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and the warmth of the summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and are sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. As long as we live, they shall live. We remember them.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you so much. And all right. Thank you so much, everyone. I guess we can get started, and food will be served. Again, Pleasant Cafe, thank you so much for making this happen. So as of now, I'm going to call Maggie Brown for the veterans poem.
This poem is called Veterans Day. On Veterans Day, we honor all who answered to a service call. So, soldiers young and soldiers old, fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived while others have died, and all of them deserve our pride. We're proud of those, all of the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue. They fought for us and all our rights. They found through many day and nights. And though we may not know each name, we thank all veterans just the same.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you so much. And at this point, I'm going to call upon Rita, Miss Rita Di Stefano French, to go through the Quilts of Valor presentation. Thank you, Rita.
Good morning. Today we have a special presentation from the National Quilts of Valor Foundation. National Quilts of Foundation was formed 20 years ago this month, so we're celebrating our 20th year. And what we do is we present quilts that are handmade, and I have our Stow Stitches with us here today who have made every quilt that is going to be presented today. Today we have 25 quilts. It is not enough to cover all of our veterans in this room, but that is our goal to continue so we can do this again next year and cover many more of you veterans because you are very important to us and we are honored. Today we will welcome you and wrap you as our hero, welcome you home, because we will never know the extent of your sacrifice to protect our nation. So we thank you. I'm going to have Deb Woods come up and speak a tiny bit more about Quilts of Valor, followed by Carol, and then we will have the 25 veterans today line up and we will present you and wrap you in your quilt. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. I'm just going to state up front, I'm going to cry. Many times. Touched by war. The missions of the Quilts of Valor Foundation is to cover service members and veterans touched by war with comforting and healing quilts of valor. Quilts of Valor original mission was to cover service members and veterans wounded physically or psychologically with comforting and healing quilts of valor. No one really liked the word psychologically, and the U.S. chaplain John Kellerson suggested using touched by war as a replacement. The Foundation's original focus was on young service members wounded in Iraq, Operation Iraq Freedom, and Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. Catherine Roberts, the Foundation founder, recalls the light of inclusiveness she experienced at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Traveling Wall event in 2009. Catherine's group planned to award Quilts of Valor to the OIF and OEF veterans, but none were present. Patriot Guard veterans there to ride past the wall on their motorcycles received them instead. Catherine recalls the Vietnam vet said over and over again, "Ma'am, this is the first time in 40 years anyone has ever thanked me for my service." From then on, any warrior who had been touched by war, no matter when his or her service, could receive a Quilt of Valor, no questions asked. Some in our community regret the removal of the word combat. Others welcome the change as it provides a way to recognize and honor any service member or veteran who has taken an oath of enlistment, vowing he or she will lay down his or her life for country and freedoms. The signer promises to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. These Americans vow to give their lives for you and me, no questions asked. We cannot judge what being touched by war means to a veteran. It is different for each, depending on where and when they serve. A nurse at Landstuhl Air Force Base, Walter Reed, or Topeka, Kansas. A nurse or medic at Dover preparing remains for burial. A general serving in the Pentagon, an infantry soldier serving in a war zone in a humanitarian effort, or down the street at a local armory. As we award these Quilts of Valor, let us do so with no judgment, but with trust. Trust that these veterans have been touched by war. Those who wear or have worn the uniform are, without question, the most profoundly affected. What started in 2003 with a few quilts now has risen to over 355,000 quilts of valor as of today. May we continue to cover as many as we can. Thank you for being here today to honor all our deserving veterans. Carol Dunlap.
Good morning. Good morning. We'd like the following veterans, and we have scouts here to help you, escort you up and line up along here, okay? If you're not lined up alphabetically, it's okay. We'll find you, okay? Would Charles Aronson, U.S. Navy. Oh, sorry. David Abatsis, U.S. Army. Roger Berkeley, Air Force. William Byron, Army. Dick Callahan, National Guards. Norman Colleton, Air Force. Hector Constanzos, Air Force. Andy Demore, Navy. Werner Fritz, Army. Bob Glorioso, Army. Bill Hoffman, Army. Fred Johnson, Army. James, excuse me if I pronounced this wrong, Kimbrough, Army. John LeBlanc, Army. Sanford Levy, I believe, Army. Martha Monroe, Air Force. Lou Orsatti, Air Force. Jim Raffa, Air Force. Andrea Rizzo, Air Force. Excuse me. We have more. Rosario Rizzo, Air Force. Michael Trevallant, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Air Force. Larry Trefry, Marines. Stephen Trefry, Army. And Tom Zavorsky, Army. Oh, I'm sorry, and Newton Wesley. I'm not sure which branch. Okay. Army, okay, Newton Wesley, Army. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service, all of you. Our quilters will now be presenting and wrapping the quilts while I read the poem, the Quilt of Valor poem by Mary Welch, who was the founder of Quilt of Valor. A few pieces of cloth from people who care. To honor your service, it only seems fair. Carefully chosen materials of red, white, and blue, sewn together for those patriotic and true. A top pieced together with caring and pride, then quilted with backing and warm layer inside. Every stitch and seam sewn from the very start with appreciation and gratitude straight from the heart, for you who have sacrificed, for those here at home. May this quilt warm and comfort you wherever you roam. Our hope with this quilt is to make sure you knew we appreciate all you've done and all you've been through. Thank you.
I'm doing. Thank you. Did you see it first? Yes, you did. Hold it now. For a little over a year. We started a year ago. We started here as a group called P for P, Projects for a Purpose, and we started with small little blankets for the fire department, for ambulance calls. And then I'm part of Quilts of Valor, and I make 4 quilts a year for the Sterling range and for Post 189 in Sterling. And so I said, do we want to bring it here? And of course, they never say no. And then this ferocious, I know, guys are going to do this. She's a workhorse.
And while we're waiting, you will notice on all of the quilts, there is a label on the bottom of the quilt that talks about who made it and the date, so you also have that as part of the quilt. I think we did it.
And then can we do a second one? Can we get in?
Yep. Hey.
I would just like to say on behalf of the Veterans Grave Committee that this was such a surprise and absolutely beautiful, gorgeous quilts. And I would like to give a huge round of applause to all of the quilters that made this happen today. Thank you so much.
I will take this honor to invite Representative Kate Hogan, who is our next speaker.
So, thank you. I know that this has been organized by the Neshoba Rotary, the town of Stow, Catherine Hamill, and our MC, Christine Mudgett, and all of the Rotary volunteers, and our fire chief, J.P. Benoit, and town administrator extraordinaire, Denise Dombrowski. Can we give them all a round of applause, please? Thank you, everybody. Thank you for what you do. And to our veterans here today, thank you. We're grateful beyond measure for your service. You are one of over 22 million United States veterans that embody the best of what it is to be an American and the best of the American character. And if we look out at our country's history, you know, a history that started just up the road with patriot farmers on a rude bridge in Concord and continued through the decades to the fields of France, the beaches of Normandy, the Korean Peninsula, the dense jungles of Vietnam, the Persian Gulf, or the mountains of Afghanistan. Extraordinary Americans have always answered the call to freedom. No matter where you served, here or abroad, you took an oath to defend your country and her interests and provide necessary support for our allies. And today that service and that sacrifice is more important than ever. There is a rising disdain for our democratic ideals and institutions in places near and far. Attacks on the freedoms guaranteed and enshrined in our Constitution and taking place in increasing numbers. Extremist activity, insurrection, harassment, hate speech, vandalism, and violence have reached historic levels. Our response to these acts is a reflection of who we are. How we act and how we speak in these situations is more than words and actions. We must communicate our values clearly so there is no doubt what our government and our system of justice stand for. We stand for and with each other, and we stand for liberty and justice for all. I think we all share a great responsibility now. You know, it's been said that anti-Semitism and racism are gateways to the destruction of democracy. So that responsibility is to ensure that anti-Semitism and racism, hate crimes of any kind, do not take root here, have no home, no friends, and they are not normalized or accepted and that the flames of hatred are not fanned, and that fascism everywhere is crushed. And as we honor our veterans here today, we say clearly that we value the struggles and the sacrifices you made to defend our democracy. As veterans, I ask you, please continue to teach us what you've learned from fighting for a cause greater than yourself, fighting to preserve the greatest of all experiments in democracy. As Joseph Campbell once wrote, a hero is someone who has given his or her life to something bigger than oneself. As veterans here today who dedicated your life to something greater, please help us understand that our history is filled with battles and wars that freed entire continents from tyrants. That the USA has always been willing to fight for our freedoms and the freedoms of people around the world. And may we, here today, commit to an America worthy of the sacrifice and service of our veterans. And Godspeed to all those in our armed forces who stand in harm's way. God bless Stow. God bless this great Commonwealth. And God bless America. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Representative Hogan. What a speech. What a speech. And at this moment in time, I will take the honor of introducing Honorable Jamie Eldridge.
Thank you so much, Susan, and good morning, everyone. And it's just been such an honor to have the chance to sit down with you here today at the Stow Veterans Day breakfast. And like Representative Hogan said, I also want to thank all the people that made this possible, from the Rotary Club in Neshoba Valley to the town of Stow, Fire Chief and Stow Police Chief, the Boy Scouts, and just wonderful to see this ceremony of the Quilts and Valor to Stow military servicemen and women who have been willing to step up and show their courage and show their bravery and serve our country to protect the freedoms that some of which Representative Hogan mentioned. At a time when, and I know Susan made reference to it, at a time when there's growing conflicts across the globe, I think it's so important to think about the commitments and the bravery and the willingness for veterans, for military servicemen and women to sacrifice their lives for those freedoms because of the distinct freedoms that we have here in the United States. You think about the freedoms protected and rights protected under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the freedom of speech to say whatever we wish here in our community, here in our country. The freedom of religion, to be able to practice whatever religion that we wish. The freedom of assembly, for us to gather, just like we're here on this beautiful morning, to gather together and share in community. And the right to petition our government, to speak freely about what your concerns are about our government. And so that's makes that the sacrifices and the hard work and the service of our veterans even more important, because we know that these are the freedoms that are being protected, whether it's serving in military wars or the professional service that long-term servicemen and women provide, including here in Massachusetts. There's so many groups here that are providing service, and I'm so grateful for that. And I know, talking to some of the leaders of the Rotary Club in the Neshoba Valley, I know that already there's a partnership with just an amazing nonprofit in another part of my district, in Devens, of course, the former military base, which still has a strong military presence of each of the branches of the U.S. military, and the nonprofit is Clear Path for Veterans. So I know that the Rotary Club has worked already with Clear Path for Veterans with the service dogs, which is really important, And what I would say to anyone here, if you haven't yet had the chance to go up to Devens and visit the new facility of ClearPath, it's an organization that actually, which is really powerful, they actually purchased the former U.S. Army hospital that's at Devens. So they purchased that a few years ago. Proud to work with sort of the entire legislative delegation to provide some additional support. And if you go up there now, first of all, I know one of the conversations often about providing support for veterans is the isolation that many veterans feel, especially after they come back from conflict. What the ClearPath for Veterans provides is sort of a social hall for veterans, and as many veterans as there are here in Stow, in the Neshoba Valley, in Ayer, Harvard, Shirley, because of the presence of the military base, there's even more U.S. military servicemen and women that are there, including many who are retired. And just to have a place to go now, a sense of community to come together to share about people's experiences. And of course, we know that some of those experiences are very traumatic. And so in addition to ClearPath for Veterans being a place to gather, it also provides both sort of professional medical support and alternative therapies for people that are struggling or suffering from PTSD. So that is now a space at that building. And then another project which really coincides with a really exciting initiative by the Healy-Driscoll administration that I don't think is yet publicly announced, but hopefully you know that now, due to some changes by the legislature last session, there is now a cabinet-level veteran service position. So Representative Hogan and I's former colleague, John Santiago, is now the Veterans Secretary for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And an initiative that is just beginning now is to end veteran homelessness. We know that the vast majority of veterans and U.S. military servicemen and women are incredibly successful and give back and contribute in so many ways, but heartbreakingly, there are some that have really struggled post-service. And so what ClearPath for Veterans is beginning to initiate is actually to build housing for homeless veterans at Devens. And that's a partnership that, just looking out here to everyone here at the Stow Veterans Day breakfast, knowing the sort of commitment to service that Stow and Stow residents have, would really ask for you to create an even stronger partnership with ClearPath for Veterans, because this is going to be a very exciting initiative to provide housing support for homeless veterans at Devens. There's already some support there, but this is looking to purchase a separate building to provide dedicated supportive housing. And this really dovetails with what is happening now under the Healy-Driscoll administration of this, again, this commitment to end homelessness for veterans across Massachusetts. So I just wanted to note that, and really just want to be here to thank each and every one of Stow veterans. Thank you so much for your service. I'm honored to represent you, and the willingness for you to step up and serve, the willingness to sacrifice your lives if needed, is deeply appreciated by me, and just so wonderful to talk to and catch up with so many of you this morning. So thank you so much, and an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So at this moment in time, we're going to have our speaker, the guest speaker. However, I will invite one of our members from the Rotary Club of Neshoba Valley. I'm going to say this one thing about this person that I am inviting, Mrs. Mary Garcia. If there is one thing I have learned to really appreciate about Mary, is her ability to stay the course. The Dogs for Vets initiative, without Mary, the hard work she puts in, she's nodding because she understands, all the hours, the passion, we could not be able to do it. When Mary dedicates herself to a cause, count it done. And we don't have so many Marys nowadays. So to have you in our community to really emulate the kind of person you are, that's an honor. So please come over and introduce our guest speaker.
Susan, you are too kind. We are absolutely thrilled this morning for our keynote speaker, who has traveled quite a distance to be here with us this morning, all the way up from just about Rhode Island. And he leaves here, heads to the airport, and then heads over to Naples, Italy, for a week-long training with officers around the world. And he's quite a special person. We welcome retired Rear Admiral Edward Cashman this morning as our keynote speaker. Ed has served our country with distinction over all his years in the Navy, serving from 1988 to 2020. He hails from Brockton and graduated from MIT in mechanical engineering, followed by a Master's of Science in nuclear engineering from the University of Maryland, as well as a Master's of Arts in National Security Studies from the Naval War College. He was also a fellow at the CNO Strategic Studies Group in Newport. Among the many years of service, his commands include the USS Mustin, Destroyer Squadron 50, and the Joint Task Force at Guantanamo. Most recently, he served as the commander of the Standing NATO Maritime Group 1, where he commanded and coordinated ships from a number of contributing NATO countries to ensure readiness and response when needed. Ed retired from the Navy, but is currently serving as the Dean at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, where he heads up the College of Maritime Operational Warfare. Among the awards Ed has received include the Defense Superior Service Medal and the Legion of Merit. We're so happy to have him with us this morning. Please join me in welcoming Ed Cashman.
Thanks very much, Mary. And thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to join you here today. I won't go through the bio as mentioned, originally from Brockton, Massachusetts. I graduated from MIT in 1987 and actually went to work for a little while as an engineer just down the road in Marlborough, actually. But the pay was good, the work was interesting, and the people were really nice, so I decided I couldn't stay. So I went down to the Navy recruiter, and they said, "Son, we have work for you." Down to Officer Candidate School in Newport and started my career as a surface warfare officer, ship driver in the Navy with a specialty in nuclear engineering. Just about 35 years ago, I guess, day after Thanksgiving in 1988. Followed by assignments on both coasts of the United States, all over the world, Bahrain, Japan, a lot of time in the Middle East, Riyadh, Cuba, and then ending up, fortunately, with the NATO Maritime Group, which was a fantastic experience. Amazingly enough, my wife, Debbie, put up with me and the Navy for all those years, 34 and counting so far. And I started my current position at the Dean of the College of Maritime Operational Warfare in May of last year. The College of Maritime Operational Warfare runs a series of courses at the War College for officers and senior NCOs, some DoD civilians, as well as what I'm going to go do next week, some short courses for general officer and flag officers, focused on headquarters work, operational level planning, staff operations, orders preparation, not tactics and platforms, driving ships and airplanes, but also not the rest of the War College's work, studying Clausewitz and Thucydides and the rest. Most of my time is spent with the routine aspects of enabling, the staff and faculty do their works. Budgets and personnel, meetings about emails, emails about meetings. But I do get to spend some time with the students, and I get to see them in the classroom, I get to talk to them, and I get to talk periodically in Newport with students at the Surface Warfare Officer School or even at the Officer Candidate School at their graduation exercises. So again, I want to talk a little bit to you about those young men and women, those young people that are joining today. I always thank those students for the work they'll do during the course that's coming up, and more importantly, for the work that they're going to do when they leave the classroom and go to their units, to their headquarters staff, because that work is incredibly important. I also try to tell them why I think the work, the service they're about to embark on is so important. I found over time that when people understand the why their time, why their sacrifice, why their work is important, there's nothing that they can't accomplish. I remind them that it's important to understand that what we are swearing to, the commitment we are making when we take our oath, not to a person or a commander or a government, but to the Constitution of the United States. For my students, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says, Congress shall have the power to provide and maintain a Navy. Title 10 of the U.S. Code, when Congress did that, the Navy shall be organized, trained, and equipped primarily for prompt, sustained combat operations at sea. Pretty dry stuff, not particularly inspiring. Our first president was much more eloquent and inspiring when he said in a letter to Lafayette, "It follows then as certain as that night succeeds the day, that without a decisive naval force, we can do nothing definitive, and with it, everything honorable and glorious." So we try to focus on that, honorable and glorious. For almost 250 years, people have chosen to serve the nation. I'll come back to that word, to serve, in just a minute. They established an honorable and glorious tradition. In the Navy, Jones and Decatur, Perry and Farragut, Nimitz and Spruance, countless others over the generations. I remind those students that they are now part of that tradition, and they have a responsibility for preserving and earning that heritage. Service and responsibility. We often hear from people, from family members, from friends, about their sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, cousins being in the service. Were you in the service? I think this is more meaningful than we think, because we're talking about a career of service. Service to the nation, service to the Constitution and our values, and most importantly, service to the people we lead. Leadership is service. As people rise through positions of increasing complexity, authority, and responsibility, it's important that they remember that they remain a servant to the people entrusted to them by the nation, as well as to the nation as a whole. Those young men and women, those sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines, who have also volunteered to serve the nation, far from home, in dangerous circumstances, potentially to be asked to risk everything, even their lives, to fulfill their oaths, are the responsibility of those who lead them. Still today, the great strength of the United States military is that we understand and treat those young men and women with the respect and genuinely understand that leadership is service. That even when the mission requires that we ask for long hours, months away from family and loved ones, challenged to achieve seemingly impossible tasks or make great sacrifices, they will move mountains. In his great book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl notes that life is not primarily a quest for pleasure or a quest for power, but a quest for meaning. All around us these days, we can see unhappiness and of unfortunate people who have no meaning in their lives. Addiction, profound depression, disconnectedness, eventually anger and violence. People fall under the influence of gangs or cults, searching for connectedness and meaning. Frankl points out that it is not life that owes us an answer to the question, what is the meaning of life? But rather our responsibility to our lives, to decide and take action to give meaning to our lives. These decisions, these actions, can come in many forms. Commitment to community, as you're demonstrating here, to faith, to causes, and to family. I remind those young people beginning a career of service to the nation that that service can be part of that answer. Part of the answer about how they choose to give meaning to their lives and therefore find purpose and happiness. People sometimes express concern about young people joining the service today. They think they may be joining for the wrong reasons or that they're different somehow, not up to the challenges ahead of them. From my vantage point, there's no cause for concern about the young people who continue to volunteer to choose a career of service. They choose to serve to become part of something greater than themselves, to serve a higher purpose, and knowingly or not, as part of the way to give meaning to their lives. As I think back to my decision in 1987, I don't think they are much different at all, except for being smarter and more mature than I was. Their brains, their skill, their initiative, their willingness to assume great responsibilities and make great sacrifices, they remain the United States military's true strategic advantage. From our mid-grade non-commissioned officers through young unit commanders, their tactical and technical excellence, their ingenuity, their ability to adapt, these are our true secret weapons. They only need our support and our continued commitment to keep the institutions they serve worthy of their service and sacrifice. Support for the family members, for the spouses and children of those who serve, is an essential prerequisite to continue earning their loyalty. Time passes quickly. It's easy to forget how we got to where we are now, that things have been different in our own lifetimes. From the first recognition of Armistice Day on November 11th, just after the Great War, just barely over 100 years ago, through to its creation as a national holiday in 1938 and being named Veterans Day in 1954, in recognition of all those veterans returning from the Second World War in Korea. It's tough to remember that within a single generation of the creation of that holiday in 1954, that veterans, individuals, returning to the United States from a conflict overseas were greeted not with support and appreciation, but with protests, insults, and violence. It's a shameful period in our history, and we ought not forget it. I'll come back to where I started by saying thanks to all of you. On behalf of those young men and women, for the support the country shows to them. As you can see from my bio, I've lived and worked in a number of places around the world with allies and partners who universally appreciate the opportunity to work with the U.S. Armed Forces. They are routinely surprised when they visit the U.S. by the level of support and respect the Armed Forces members get from the population writ large. Just as it's important for us to keep the institutions of American life worthy of the sacrifices of those who have served and continue to serve today, it's the responsibility of the armed forces, meaning all members of the profession of arms, to remain trusted, competent, non-political servants of the nation. Only in this way can they maintain the trust and confidence of the American people, and there's nothing more important than that. In his great book, Democracy in America, de Tocqueville makes some, I think, astute observations about America and the strengths that would lead it to become a great nation. He talks at length about the importance of equality before the law. He talks about the freedom of speech in the press and the importance of having many voices, newspapers in those days, in the public square. And he talked about the prevalence and importance of civic organizations, advocacy groups for different causes, local or national, religious or secular, but all examples of the strength of the American democracy because it was energetically participatory. Civic organizations, he argues, tend to offset the tendency of individuals to isolate themselves from community, which happens in individual rights-focused societies, and form part of what he calls the habits of the heart of successful democratic societies. So thanks to you for your engagement and involvement in the community, and thank you again for the opportunity to join you today.
Thank you so much for that incredible speech and to remind us what this country is all about and the great sacrifices each single one of you veterans have certainly contributed to us being here. This is not something we take lightly. Thank you all. And I guess at this point in time, I will have Chris, our current president for the Rotary Club of Neshoba, come and give us her speech as well as the rest of the program.
Thank you, Susan. I just want to take a moment to once again thank all of the groups that it took to get this breakfast together. It was a huge effort by a lot of people. And I want to thank the sponsors and the volunteers. And many of them have been mentioned already, but I just kind of want to go through everything all together. We have Kate Hogan and Jamie Eldridge and Ed Cashman for speaking to us. Special mention again for Frank and the Pleasant Cafe for the breakfast. Yeah. Honey Pot Orchards, Keller Williams Realty, and Apple Country Homes, all organizations in Stow. The Town of Stow Fire Department, the Police Department, and the Town Administrative Offices. The Rotary Club of Neshoba Valley. The Scouts, who were here yesterday afternoon, are here all morning. The Neshoba High School Rotary Club, which was here yesterday helping with our setup. The Center School second grade class, who wrote all the cards, all the handwritten cards on all your tables. And the Quilts of Valor organization, fantastic. And then, last but not least, it can't be said enough, thank you for your service to all the veterans. Okay. So we're going to do something now to recognize veterans by branch of service. So I will call out the name of a branch of service and ask you to stand as you're able so that we can recognize you. These are in no particular order. First of all, Army. All those from the Army. Thank you. Navy. Okay. Okay, the Navy. The Air Force. Yeah. Marines. Do we have anyone from the Marines? Yes, we do. The National Guard. I think we had maybe one, maybe not. And a Coast Guard. I don't think we had any Coast Guard. Okay. So thank you for all of you. So we're going to retire the colors and then we will conclude. But after we retire the colors, we'd ask all the veterans to come and stand. You don't have to be in front of your own flag. That would be too difficult. But we'd like to get a group picture of all the veterans in front of this wall. But first, I think we're going to retire the colors.